WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and weekend with my wife, who is, it's been 2 leukemia survivals for her since her last trip to Nashville. So we are really, really excited about getting back down there and having a little bit of fun, hitting Monell's and our pancake pantry, and, of course, our big party at Piranha's in downtown Nashville, just off Broadway. Very easy to find. We'll be there on Friday and Saturday. This guy knows his way around Broadway in 2nd and 3rd, and up and down the strip there where the Predators were giving him hell back in June. He is the host of the Midday 180 in prime time, as well as the Friday night finals at 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. We're coming down there to give the Titans a hard time. Chad Withrow joining us now from 104.5 The Zone. You can find him at Withrow Zone out on Twitter as well. You guys just tallying off from all that Predators fun, and look at this. The Titans are, I would think, should be the favorite to win this division right now.
It's high times in Nashville for sure. You're coming into an it city right now this weekend, and Piranha's is a good spot to be. So I'm sure you guys will have fun there. Yeah, it's I tell you what, Predators in terms of their run last year and what that's meant to the start of this season, and interest in the Preds early on in the year, which really hasn't been here before. It's been really incredible to watch. And yeah, the Titans have been surprisingly, they're at the top of the division. They're tied, but they own the tiebreaker right now, and They are seen as a bit of a disappointment so far early in the season. That kind of showed you where expectations were coming into this year, and they're certainly, I think, right now probably the favorite to win the AFC South. So there's been some lean years with the Titans recently, I'm sure, as you know. So it's fun to be talking about a Titans team here in Nashville now that looks like they could be headed to a playoff run this year.
Well, I mean, the first thing is getting the quarterback right, and I think you've got that part of it right, and there were all the building pieces around him. Still having a lot of trouble throwing the football. I don't know that they really want to throw the football that much, given his hamstring and certainly him running around a little bit, which is one of his weapons, of course, that the Ravens need to spread out and keep an eye on. But the passing part of the offense hasn't been much, but the running part is probably how they want to win on Sunday, right?
Yeah, definitely. This is we talk a lot about identity with this team, and this team wants their identity to be a big, bruising offensive line, 2 really good running backs, DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, and they want to run the football. They haven't been able to run the ball as well this year as they did last year. And passing-wise, you're right that the numbers are down. Now, 2 things are going to help that, though, moving forward for the Titans. In Mike Mularkey's weekly press conference, he mentioned that Marcus Mariota's 100% now, with 2 weeks to heal up, or at least this past week, has really helped a hamstring that probably, quite frankly, had him at about 60% the last 2 games against Indy and against Cleveland. So that's going to help. Also, the return of Corey Davis, who looked good in very limited time. He played a little bit of the first game of the year against Oakland. He's the number 5 overall pick out of Western Michigan. He's a guy that was drafted to beat people down the field, and the Titans have simply not had that option this year. The hope is that even if he's not making big catches deep down the field, he poses enough of a threat that can kind of open things up and help everyone else out. But certainly getting Corey Davis back this week, also the return of Marcus Mariota, maybe completely healthy, should help the Titans offense.
He is Chad Withrow. He's doing it down there in Nashville. All of our programming here this week brought to you by Box Hill Pizzeria. I call it a crab cakery. It's the best crab cakes up in Harford County. In Abingdon, they can now be shipped anywhere in the world, including Nashville, Tennessee. You can find that at Box Hill Pizzeria, but don't buy that. It's a crab cakeria. And make sure you get the salad dressing when you're in there, because that's the special stuff there. Chad, I guess for the offense and running the football, this 2-headed running monster, I've been a big Derrick Henry fear-mongerer since his days at Alabama. I mean, I thought he would just be a train wreck of a running back in the NFL. I thought he'd be hard to bring down. He certainly was at the SEC. I mean, in the SEC, there were guys that looked like they didn't want to tackle him. And I know that, coming into Tennessee, they do want to sort of split the carries here. But I think eventually he should be the game wrecker for that offense, right?
Yeah, I think that's why they drafted him. DeMarco Murray has battled injury a little bit this year. He's had a tight hamstring as well, so he hasn't been as effective. I will say this about Derrick Henry. He's such a big dude. He's a good 6'4", 240 pounds. But what's strange about him and DeMarco Murray, obviously a big difference in size. They're both similar runners from a style standpoint, and DeMarco Murray is actually a little bit better in between the tackles. And Derrick Henry, even at his size, is more of a long galloper that can really beat you once he gets going. with a head of steam and can outrun a secondary. You saw that late in the Indianapolis game on Monday Night Football. So looking at both guys, you assume one is one way, one's the other. They're actually a little bit more similar than people think. And Derrick Henry may actually be, to quote you, a better game breaker than DeMarco Murray in terms of breakaway speed. So, look, there's high hopes for Derrick Henry, obviously, here in the South. And here in Tennessee, there's a lot of Alabama fans. We're not that far from Tuscaloosa. So they saw him win a Heisman Trophy there. They've got high expectations for him. He's the future of that backfield for the Titans. And that's been the kind of mystery right now for the Titans. How do you break it down percentage-wise for both those guys moving forward? I think we're going to see a lot closer to a 50-50 split moving forward instead of DeMarco Murray having the bulk of the carries. And based on who has the hot hand, you're going to see some games where Derrick Henry's going to get a lot more carries than DeMarco Murray.
You know, when I see Derrick Henry, reminds me of one of your former stars there over in Knoxville, and Jamal Lewis, and you know what he represented just as a runner. You know, I look at this Titans team, and I don't know much about their defense. I mean, there's some guys there like Casey that have been around for a while. Obviously, Rakpo we know well from down in D.C. Who's the best player on the Titans? I don't even know who that would be at this point. I know Mariota's the most famous, right?
Yeah, Mariota's definitely the guy, and he's the future at quarterback. Titans defense, Jarrell Casey, you know, he's not at a high-profile position there at defensive end and can also play defensive tackle in a 3-4 defense. But he's a very steady player that's good in all the Pro Football Focus metrics. Logan Ryan is a high-priced player they brought over from New England in the offseason who's been good in year one. Avery Williamson, a very steady and productive linebacker. But yeah, this is a defense that doesn't have a lot of stars. Brian Orakpo and Derek Morgan had big seasons last year. That's tailed off from a sack standpoint this season. But it's a Dick LeBeau run defense that, quite frankly, at times has looked pretty bad, especially against the pass, especially at the cornerback position. But at times has been really good. In fact, it saved them against Cleveland in their last game. I mean, that's a game the Titans win because their defense holds Cleveland to field goals the entire time, and they win a close one in overtime when the offense really had nothing, but the defense consistently shut down Cleveland. And Kevin Byard, who is a budding star in the secondary at safety, was able to pick off 3 passes. So it's been a bit of an up-and-down roller coaster defensively for the Titans this year, with a low point being that blowout loss to Houston where Deshaun Watson did whatever he wanted. But if I had to qualify the defense as something, it's probably sort of a no-name, no-star type group.
I tell you what, Chad, you know, having spent so many years down there in Nashville running around with the Predators when Barry Trotz was there and being down there during the Fisher era and when Jimmy Schwartz was running the defense, you know, I always got the sense that the Titans were second fiddle in a big way to the Volunteers. And I know the Volunteers have had their bad days, as has their friends down in Florida with McElwain. They're going to be looking for coaches in the offseason and whatnot. This was an incredible offseason, I think, for the Titans, for promise, for expectations to be the best team in the state in some way. And, you know, Memphis does their thing on their side, and the Volunteers have had, 100 years of grabbing fans around there. And obviously the Predators thing has grown so much. But this, their expectation level for the Titans, I think, as your town has grown and grown around the NFL, when the NFL was just sort of the dessert for the real meal, which was Saturday college football, I think that's changed a little bit in your town at least, right?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I would still say that you were right on your first assessment. It's still a Tennessee town, first and foremost. It's definitely a Tennessee Vols state. But, it's also, there's tons of Alabama fans. As Nashville becomes a lot more metropolitan, you've got people, young adults, young professionals moving in from everywhere. So there are a lot of Ohio State fans in Nashville. There's a lot of Auburn fans in Nashville. There's a lot of Florida fans in Nashville. Pretty much the entire SEC is represented by a large fan base here in the city. So it has, as the city has grown, you've seen that really help the Titans because a lot of SEC graduates didn't grow up with a hardcore NFL team. So they get into a city like Nashville and they go for the home team. So you're seeing a lot of younger Titan fans out there. And the Predators have really benefited from that. I know we talked about it before, but they have really cashed in on a young audience here in Nashville that just wants to have fun, that wants to be attached to something that's fun. That's exactly what Nashville Predators hockey is right now. So it's been great for them. But in terms of overall fan base building, I think naturally, because there are just simply more people in Nashville right now, you've seen that Titans fan base grow. And in terms of expectation this year, that's helped as well. I mean, this is a market that's excited about Marcus Mariota, that's excited about being, at least going into the year, the most stable situation in the AFC South. That's changed a little bit because Deshaun Watson looks like an emerging star in Houston. But, yeah, I think overall it's a fan base that was very excited. They remain optimistic right now. And it's a Titans fan base that's only growing because Nashville continues to grow.
Such a weird year, Chad. Around the league with the 3-5s and the 4-4s, and the Bills at 5-2. I don't know that we take them so seriously, but at some point, 6 of these teams are going to be standing in the playoffs in January, and 9 wins might be what gets you there. And you mentioned your division at this point. Clearly the Indianapolis Colts and what's happened to Andrew Luck there probably is going to cost Chuck Pagano his job. May have cost Luck his career, or certainly a significant part of it. And the whole notion that thing was just going to slide from Peyton Manning right to Andrew Luck, and all y'all were going to get boxed out, and Jacksonville was going to suck into perpetuity, and that Houston would never be able to find a quarterback. It's kind of upside down with Watt hurt and Watson looking real, Mariota looking real, and certainly talent-wise, I think the Titans have the most talent. Maybe the defense of the Texans, when fully put together, you could make that sort of case. And Jacksonville has been Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, they just destroyed us over in Wembley a month ago. And now you look up and they get beat and they get beatings. And I think there's a lot of that going on when the Houston Texans put 57 up on you guys a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a wild year. You're right. It's been a roller coaster ride, especially in this division. And, 2 eye-openers. I will say 3 eye-openers for Jacksonville. One was that opening week win where they really just destroyed Houston. Coming off all the stuff with Hurricane Harvey, it's an emotional crowd, and Jacksonville just took it to them down in Houston to start the season. And then the next week, the Titans go down there and do the same thing to Jacksonville in the second half and win going away. But then I think the turning point in terms of perception for that Jacksonville team came in that blowout win over you guys over in London. That was an eye-opener for the rest of the division. But everyone has had just such an up-and-down year. I mean, you look at the Titans. They beat Seattle. They're able to destroy Jacksonville. It's a team that's also capable of going to overtime with Cleveland, who's winless, and losing to Miami when they had no offense. So it seems like everyone in this division is Jekyll and Hyde, with the possible exception of Indy, who, let's face it, without Andrew Luck, just looks like they're not a very good football team. It'll continue to be that way. But you look around the league, and you're right, Buffalo with only 2 losses. How good is New Orleans? It's amazing to see this situation where you don't feel like there's any dominant teams. You've got a collection of teams that are 4-3 right now, and any one of them can make a deep playoff run also. It really is fascinating to watch how, sort of the NFL's dream of creating a system where pretty much everyone is 8-8. That seems to be coming to fruition right now with this year's league.
Well, I think it makes it interesting in one way that everybody's into a game this week between a 4-4 and a 4-3 team, believing one of these 2 teams will make the playoffs, kind of, sort of, at some point. And certainly on our side of the fence, all of you familiar with watching Thursday night. And speaking of blowouts, I mean, I don't think anybody got in the car and drove to the stadium last Thursday night thinking the Ravens were going to win 40-0. Certainly not after the way they looked in Minnesota a week and a half ago, as well. But the Joe Flacco play, the hook slide, the forearm shiver to his head that we're going to be talking about around here. I'm sure we'll be talking about it on Sunday one way or another, whether he plays or not. And we have a bye week after that. So, I mean, there is a little part here to think let Mallett play and give Flacco some time to recuperate for a Green Bay game 2.5 weeks from now. But that being said, you watch that. Boy, that's a real problem for the league, isn't it? When you have a quarterback that can have his head taken off, and yeah, there might be a fine and a FedEx sent to the player, and yeah, it might be 15 yards, but he didn't even get thrown out of the game. And then the debate of whether it's legal or not legal. I mean, he was defenseless and hook sliding. He's a quarterback. I know you want to keep him from getting hit to the sticks and whatnot, but the quarterback's not thinking, I'm going to get clobbered in the head when he hook slides. I mean, he truly is the meaning of defenseless. And on top of that, there is no fine, there is no anything if one of our backup pass rushers takes your quarterback's head off this week, right?
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, I've seen the hit, obviously, and it was bad. And I hope Joe Flacco is able to go, and I hope it's not serious. I hope he plays on Sunday against the Titans. But it's something the league is trying to curtail, obviously, because, let's look at the situation with Green Bay. You don't have Aaron Rodgers playing. That really diminishes the interest in the NFL for a league that's already suffering from a diminishing interest from the country based on the high times they've had. That's a big-time issue. And like you said, what's to stop a team, especially a division rival, if you're playing a team for the first time that year, you're going to see them later in the year, to take some shots at the quarterback, to try to drive that collarbone into the ground, to try to take the forearm shiver into the head and cause a concussion. That's well worth $50,000 or $100,000 fine and a game or two suspension. So the only
your old boy Greg Williams would have, played a big role in that, right? I mean, literally, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. From a functional standpoint, I mean, let's say, okay, what's the worst that the league could do? Let's say, if the league finds that you intentionally took a quarterback out, then that guy is out for as long as the quarterback is, or you suspend the guy for the season. Well, if it's a backup guy and you took out a quarterback for the season and you're out, I mean, you win still in that trade-off. I mean, how many teams in the division would gladly pay $50,000 or $100,000 to not face the other team's star quarterback the next go-around and not really have to worry about them being a factor in the division? So, I don't think it's an overriding issue right now across the league. There's some isolated incidents out there, but if you saw more hits like the one on Flacco happen, if you saw dirty play happening out there, I could definitely see a situation where the league would have to even take a harder look at maybe some harsher punishment for players who do something like that.
He is Chad Withrow. You can find him out on the web at Withrow Zone on Twitter, as well as at 104.5 The Zone in Nashville, where he is the host of the Midday 180. All of this brought to you by our friends at Al's Seafood in Essex. I've been getting my crabs and crab cakes there since the 1970s. The oldest crab house in Baltimore is still at Stemmers and Eastern. See Chad the Crab Man there at Al's Seafood. Also want to give a shout-out to our friends at Lee Tessier and his great team at Keller Williams American Premier Realty. List your house with him and you risk nothing up there in Hartford County and even in the White Marsh and anywhere in Baltimore County. His team's going to get your house sold. Lee Tessier, that's TESSIER.com, is the way to find him out on the web. Chad, sort of last thing for you here. I guess we talked a little bit about the league and what's going on around the league. What's your market like at this point for the knee and for being in the stands and for the flag? Look, we have military all over this country. We have people who love this country all over this country. We have people that don't understand lots of things, including free speech in this country at this point. I have found it to be one hell of a convoluted mess here. I think it's been particularly hard on the Ravens franchise from what I see around other places, given the fervor that we have had here versus the old 15 or 20,000 people who decided not to show up last Thursday night. By the way, and I know you're not that old of a guy. I know you're a little younger than me, but you probably remember when Nashville didn't have a football team because you don't seem to be that young, and I certainly remember the 13 years when we didn't have a team here. And I think we can all agree, two towns that didn't have teams, it's a whole lot more fun having a team. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's been a huge boom for Nashville when they got the Titans, and I definitely remember when there was no team here and how much better it is to have a team. I mean, look, in terms of what do Titans fans, the majority of them think, I mean, we live in a red state here. We live very close to Fort Campbell, so there's a lot of military people. The Titans have a lot of ties to military. We host a Logan Ryan show every week on my show where he talked about their protest and what side of it he's on. And there are just a lot of fans out there that regardless of how many times they hear, hey, this is not about the military, it's not about disrespecting the flag, it's about this. Well, there are a lot of military people and a lot of, people on the other side of this political debate in Nashville that are Titans fans that will never agree with that it will always be about disrespecting the flag regardless of what's being said. And because of that, I don't think the Titans have been affected the same way Baltimore has been. But, yeah, I think a majority of Titans fans have a problem with the kneeling. They have a problem with the Titans not coming out on the field for the national anthem. And it has affected business a little bit. I don't think it's affected it to any great standpoint yet. I'm always shocked because I feel like if you're a football fan and you're a fan of the NFL, even if you disagree with it, it's not going to stop you from watching the game. If something happening during the national anthem really going to stop you from watching your favorite team.
I mean, there's a hell of a lot of things I disagree with the way companies run things and whether I go eat a chicken sandwich at their place or get a cheeseburger or give them my business. I mean, there are definitely businesses out there that I don't agree with whatever policy or how they do things or whatever, and I choose to abstain doing business with them. But there are also, places where you can have a political disagreement and say, I just want the sandwich, right? Literally.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately here's where it all comes down to. And this is not a political statement for me at all. This is basically people don't want to hear anything on the other side. I mean, this is both ways. The Titans are experiencing some of this because you're getting some of this, oh, well, if they disagree with this, then they're a racist or bi to fans who disagree with us. And then on the other side, you got people who disagree with the kneeling that's saying, I'm just not going to support the NFL, not going to show up to games, not going to watch on television, not going to do this and that. To where I'm always on the side of, if you're a real football fan, it's just odd to me that you would completely turn off a sport because you disagree politically with something happening. So
you don't have to like Vince McMahon to watch the WWE, right? I mean, literally, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know.
I don't have to be a Scientologist to watch Top Gun. You literally, right? I mean, literally.
Exactly. Yeah, I've always been skeptical of the true effect on it. I've heard from enough, box owners, season ticket holders that I think, okay, there is an effect on the fans that are turning away because of this, but it goes back to everything, I think, fundamentally in this country right now, that everyone is for free speech until they disagree with that free speech, regardless of what it is. And I think this is working on both sides.
You sound like you've done sports radio or something, Chad. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing though, because that's the ultimate problem. Is I'm all for your right to voice free speech, but when I disagree with that free speech, I'm going to turn you off. And then you're getting some of that on the player side also. Well, if you disagree with this, then don't show up, or don't. It's just kind of a round in circles, never ending type deal. But in terms of the Nashville market, I don't think it's affected it greatly yet. Here's what's going to affect it when the Titans start losing. I mean,
that's been an issue here. I mean,
that's it.
The issue here is
going to have a problem with it when the Titans lose.
Yeah, our team has stunk, every other week for 8 weeks here. And when they win, it's feeling, there's a feeling like, well, they'll stink next week. And look, we've had a lot of injuries here. It's been a really ugly brand of football this year. I mean, even winning 40-0 on Thursday night amidst 20,000 empty seats out there. People on Thursday don't want to get up and get the kids to school and like all that. They don't want to be out getting drunk and like all that on a Thursday night either, which is a big part of the Sunday tradition around here. But there is, I think, around the league, and having watched Red Zone on Sunday, because there are no great teams and there's nothing great happening, and there's a lot of penalties and poor play and backup quarterbacks, and it just we had a guy field a punt, run backwards into the end zone the other day. I mean, how the hell does this happen in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you asked a University of Tennessee football fan right now, that could be the staunchest person on the other side of the quarterback kneeling debate of, hey, I'm going to boycott this and that. If Tennessee football was 8-0 right now, they would have no issue at all if all the Tennessee players, set out the entire national anthem because their team is winning. But when you're 3-5, suddenly it becomes a bigger issue. Now suddenly it's a distraction, and because there's a distraction, my team is losing. So I think ultimately it all gets back to winning. Fans want to win. Fans want to be happy about their team. They want to be excited talking about them, and that's what it all comes down to.
Well, and you got that at least going on for you. Win or lose this week. I mean, the Titans are very, very relevant. Chad Withrow can be found at Withrow Zone in Nashville, Tennessee. He's going to send me to all the good spots. He says Piranhas in Nashville is a great place. We're going to be there on Friday and Saturday, hooting and hollering with Ravens fans. And, hey, I loved your Masters pictures out on Twitter. I want to give you a little shout-out on that. And
thanks.
We all have the same Super Bowl pictures from Radio Row, so I'll come over there and harass you guys at some point during Minnesota. We'll all be trying to huddle together and put sticks together to create fires on Radio Row to stay warm, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, no doubt. That's going to be a different setting than most Super Bowl locales, that's for sure. Pack a parka when you go to that Super Bowl. But, no, have fun in Nashville. Great talking with you again. And this is a fun town, so definitely come down here ready for a good time.
I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. All right, we'll see you this weekend.
All right. Thanks, Nestor.
There he goes, Chad Withrow, Withrow Zone, the way to follow him, as well as at the 104.5, the Zone website in Nashville. He also does the Zone in Nashville's TN high school football down there. High school football real big down in the Nashville, Tennessee area. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. I want to give a shout-out to our friends at D&L Window Tinting. They've been doing this for 26 years now, which is exactly as long as I've been doing sports radio. Cars, boats, businesses, they'll tint it. They put the shades on the sun. They take away the squint and protect you. Parkville and White Marsh, D&L Window Tinting, right around the corner from you. Get out there, tell Jason and the folks we said howdy. Don't forget any breaking news here on the Joe Flacco or any of the other issues we have pertaining to injuries and getting wide receivers on the field. All that will happen first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis will be here on Thursday getting you ready for the weekend and for Nashville and wrapping up the World Series and all those things from 3 until 5 on Thursday. That is the SSV on WNST. Don't forget our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all shipped digitally from our friends at Planet Fitness directly to you. Planet Fitness is $10 a month. Our morning newspaper is free thanks to the folks at Planet Fitness. Last but never least, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We're going to be at the awesome Piranha's Bar in downtown Nashville on Friday and Saturday. If you're coming to Nashville with the Ravens, stop by, see us, have a beer, watch some college football, maybe even a burger on one of those donut rolls. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.